Tulican. Fallig voor na machunian, Cúras eterbehas baas, Udig srach de cruven tauri, Laadvrat imachi damochas. Tulican na hoiker tutjum, Ranik moresh heen gefoer, Tulican na bliana foam, Fjoin date, Fjoin oar.
Leaves. The smell of autumn in my nostrils, a scent between life and death. The torn garment of summer, carpet fitting for my feet. The leaves of youth have fallen, my own time reaches autumn. The leaves of the years beneath me, some coloured, some plain.
William Neill was born and brought up in Ayr, speaking both English and Scots. After 2 years in the RAF, Neill became a mature student of Celtic and English at Edinburgh University. Neill returned to the southwest to work about 10 years ago and lives in Galloway. He writes in all 3 of the languages of Scotland, English, Scots and Gaelic. Among other poetry prizes he has received, he was crowned Bard of the 1969 Gaelic Maud.
Scotland is a small country anyway, and these languages are still spoken. And I thought that if anything is going to be accepted as Scottish literature, it ought to reflect these strands of the rope, so to speak. If you can think of Scottish language as being 3 strands of a rope, Gaelic, Scots and English, Standard English. And it seemed to me that I ought to try to reflect this linguistic variety, this variety of language. I like writing in Gaelic, you see, and the fact that other people don't understand it doesn't matter. In fact, one of the major European poets today, Sorley MacLean, is in fact writing in Gaelic, and he chooses to do this, and if there are only 80,000 people who understand him, he doesn't seem to care very much. I was brought up in Ayrshire, and I can blether awa and Scots just as well as the next man, but I can switch to Standard English when it's necessary, and the ability to switch from dialect to standard is not a difficult one. I think that it's a great mistake, and it smacks rather of hypocrisy in a way to stop children from doing this for 51 weeks of the year, and then when the buns competitions come along, you're egging them on to do it. It was a language which was spoken not only by the common people up until round about the turn of the 19th century, it was spoken by the judges of the Scottish courts, and before that, before the departure of the Scottish royal house to take over in England, it was in fact spoken in the court and in the Scottish Parliament. It was just another, if you like, another parallel development to English. 50 miles from where I'm sitting, as the crow flies, there is an island where people are still speaking Gaelic. The language is alive. Furthermore, the Scots tongue, although it's fading, is in fact alive in both Galloway and Buchan in Aberdeenshire. It's not very good anywhere else, but it's fairly good here amongst the age group of, say, 45 and above. And so it's not dead yet. There'll be time to ask that question when it finally dies, and I think it'll last my time anyway.
Allied to Neill's concern for Scotland's literary heritage are his feelings about the way its literary heroes are treated, Burns in particular.
It's a fallacy to think that Burns was a poor, uneducated peasant. No uneducated peasant could possibly have written the stuff that Burns did. Burns, in fact, had quite a good education, and it's on record, incidentally, that he could speak better Standard English than most of the gentry of Edinburgh who entertained him, a fact that's not widely known. If you read Burns's letters, you'll find that he was perfectly competent in English. What he was trying to do was to restore Scottish pride and Scottish institutions. To a certain extent, he succeeded, in fact, to quite a large extent, but it's a pity that they don't pay more attention to what he said. Because he did the same thing that MacDiarmid did later, although in a smaller way, and that is that he used words which were not necessarily Ayrshire words in his poetry. He was putting Scots together again, if you like, much the same as MacDiarmid did later.
He's especially concerned about Burns and the way he's remembered, as Burns was about the treatment of Robert Fergusson, the 18th century Edinburgh poet whose work directly influenced Burns.
Ferguson was thought so little of that his grave was overgrown, and Burns paid to have it cleared and removed. And obviously, Ferguson was the major influence on Burns.
Once a year, Mr. Burns, they will remember you in a word or two beyond your actual name. The fatuous speeches will scarcely encumber you, the maudlin tear, the exaggerated claim. Who love what you love, measure your true fame in a kind of silence the foolish find too great, who take your measure by their own puffed state. You who remembered Ferguson's smothered grave, when all but you consigned him to oblivion, placing his image in its proper frame, honouring the seed of your own inspiration, the common urge to teach by verse a nation not merely sold but deliberately retarded by those whose place enjoined on them to guard it. In your occasional sploring, they will seek solace for their own indulgences to find, but few enough of them will ever read that they may penetrate into the mind hidden beneath that aching urge to rhyme and scan in song this land's life and your own, wherein man is and will be made to mourn. The true admirer wonders how you did it, scribbling away in the midst of the elect, who seeing joy would hasten to forbid it, suspicious of all but their own miserable respect for a Stone Age merciless God of their own construct, totally without love, an idol Christ did not know, made from a kind of prurience welded into law. Two worlds, the patient hoof and ploughshare, the high-fashioned Dunedin drawing rooms, but you were scarcely happy in either place. The brief encounters of sex, the Sabbath glooms, whiskey and hypocrites, the presbytery of air, coining your verses in the snert and sneer of peasant envy and the Yahweh fear. Still you survived the capital's delights, a Hesiod in the Athens of the North, there coming between your vision and delight a curiosity, not seeing your true worth more than the Western men of your own sort, finding few listeners in either place, the growing deafness of a sinking race.
Neill takes an historical view of Scotland in much of his poetry. Sometimes, as in Mr. Burns for Supper, his theme is one of Scotland's literary figures. In other poems, he deals with historical issues. The struggles of Covenanting times are a subject of recurring interest to Neill. The poems which treat this theme are partly inspired by the Covenanting sites, memorials, and monuments which are found throughout the southwest. The statues of Old Mortality honor a man who made it his work to look after the tombstones of the Covenanters. One of these, together with the statue of a Covenanter, is to be found in Balmaclellan, near Neill's home. Another statue of Old Mortality is in the grounds of the Dumfries Museum. Neill's poem Viewpoint Lambdochty links his feeling for the Scottish landscape with his attitude to Scottish history. The sufferings of the Covenanters and the Gaelic place names of the southwest become symbols of a continuing political and cultural struggle.
On the far side of Straighton, on the hill road, the farm names change to Gaelic. So does the country, bare moorland with no fences, the rock teeth tearing at the base of clouds. Look over the Covenanting monuments desperately stabbing the heavens. You will see, beyond the spent volcano of Craig Elisich, the distant bounds of the lordship, Arran, Kintyre and Jura. The broken promises of history are drowned within the silence.